My pick for best value is the previous generation Omega Speedmaster Professional with a Hesalite crystal, a closed caseback, and 1861 movement. The last retail price for these was around 5,350. I think that's what I paid for mine in 2019, early 2019. And the current market price on WatchCharts.com for this watch is 4,567.
Right. So the previous generation Hesalite crystal Speedmaster.
Yes. What's your pick?
My pick is also an Omega, but not a Speedmaster. I picked the Omega Seamaster Aqua Terra annual calendar, reference 231.10.39.22.01.001. And I think there's also a couple of variations of this watch that I'm going to get into, but just in general, I think that the Aqua Terra annual calendar overall represents some of the best value in the mid-tier segment. And so for context, the retail price of this watch, and it still can be found on Omega's website, is $8,400. And the market price that we estimate is $3,700.
This is just one that is always it surprises me to no end that it trades at that much of a discount given the degree of complication that's available in this watch.
Right. And also significantly, so this watch comes in two case sizes and also in steel, 2 dial variations. I think there's also a 2-tone one, and there's some that come on a strap. But the ones that I'm talking about are stainless steel, coming on a full bracelet, and you have 2 case sizes, 38.5 and 43. So great options regardless of whether you prefer smaller or larger watches.
So it seems to me like when you thought of best value, you wanted to try and maximize complication per dollar in trying to come up with an answer for this question?
Yeah, but not just complication, like just a good overall watch. Like I'm not looking for the maximum complexity, but it's a holistic factor. But for me, complication is part of that, right? Complication is one of the most objective ways that you can measure sort of value, right? So, I mean, to me, this watch has it all. It has a great brand. It has a great, coaxial movement. It has the annual calendar complication. It's stainless steel. It's versatile. It's wearable. If you get the 38.5 millimeter variant, personally, for me, that's a wearable size. I would not go for the 43 myself, but the market price is all about the same. And you have a choice of dial. You have the black dial and the blue dial. I picked the black dial. I have an Aqua Terra myself. It's not this reference, but I do have an Aqua Terra that's the blue dial. Both are great. And yeah, for the price of a Tudor Black Bay 58 new, you are getting, some amazing complication and,
So you're not getting the Omega with the most heritage or the most complication or the most of anything really. It just has a lot of all of the things that you want, and then you think all of that together adds up to something that's maybe bigger than the sum of its parts, which is why you picked it as the best value. Would you say
not
that's
even
accurate?
I don't think it's necessarily that it's bigger than the sum of its parts. It's just that at the price point, right? $3,000, $4,000. This is, people think of this as like an entry level luxury watch. At the price point, I think it's pretty unbeatable.
Okay.
But I'm curious. Yeah. So why'd you pick the Speedmaster?
Well, I picked the Speedmaster because I think the Speedmaster Professional, generally speaking, is still some of the best value in watchmaking. And so that seemed like a fertile place to start. But then to plant my particular flag, obviously, like one big factor for me was that this is where I actually voted with my own money. This is the watch that I bought for myself. But also, I think what's interesting about it in particular is the configuration, first off. So I think if you're going to get a professional, a Speedmaster Professional and then call it a Moonwatch, then it has to be, correct to those specifications, which means it needs to be something that could theoretically have gone on that voyage, like the ones that actually did did.
Mhm.
Which means it can't be a sapphire crystal because that breaks the specification for a quote unquote moon watch. Like I'm militant about this. I've expressed this opinion in the past. I think if you're going to call your moon watch owner, it has to be this particular configuration. Then
Right, but
obviously it's, and then so that's the particular, like on the configuration front. Then do you go for the 1861 movement, or do you just buy new and get the 3861, which gives you the coaxial movement? I think the difference is that, in my mind, the Speedmaster is very much like, it is what it is. Like I was watching a Watchfinder video this morning actually that made a very good point around this, right? Which is that if you think about the Speedmaster Professional, generally speaking, like it's an unremarkable watch, but what makes it so special is its connection to a particular pinnacle of human achievement in the past, right? Which when you think about heritage, when you think about the historical side of watchmaking and whatever, like that story that's built around, all of these legends of the watch world, um, I think the most modern Omega that you can get that is truest to that vision really is the 1861 and not the 3861. Like the 3861 to me is like, it's now too different really from that historical thing.
and do you think, yeah, so where do you think that value comes from? Are you putting the value, are you attributing the value to the heritage and the story that is associated with the Seamaster? You're saying that like for this amount of money to get a watch with this amount of heritage, or what other
I would
factors are
say
you
so.
considering?
I would say so because you can get.
Hmm.
I mean, for $4,500, you could buy, or somewhere around there. I forget the exact amount. You can buy a Tudor Black Bay chronograph, right? Which is
Hmm.
a modern watch, not like 2-3 years old. Is more sort of the moment. Is a contemporary design, has the
Hmm.
Rolex association or whatever. If that matters to you, the design is available in more variations than the Speedmaster. So there's all of these things that, like, if you just wanted a chronograph, like a modern chronograph, like there's other options out there that would not only match your perhaps particular style and aesthetic preferences, but in some cases you could argue, like, are they better chronographs? Period.
Hmm.
Especially when you start talking about like some indie stuff. But barring that sort of kind of category of discussion, just like as far as Speedmasters themselves are concerned, I think the whole reason the genre really of the Speedmaster is what it is because of its connection to uh the Apollo missions. So it if you take that story away, I think a big part of the reason the Speedmaster just falls away.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly see the point that, like in sort of the modern catalog at this price point, to get a different watch that is comparable to the heritage of the Speedmaster, probably doesn't exist, right?
Right.
Um, so yeah, in that sense, I definitely see the value argument. It's interesting because when we came up with these categories, they were sort of pretty broad,
Mm-hmm.
and I think just we sort of thought about the question of value in different ways. In that you factored in like the brand equity and the heritage and the story that goes along with the brand and the watch as part of the value proposition, whereas I think I just more looked at the um, sort of physical attributes of the watch, right? The feature
Right.
set, the finishing, the movement, um, the wearability, stuff like that. So yeah, it's very interesting that we went two different ways on the discussion.
Yeah.
But I mean, I see the argument for both.